2:09 a.m., the southern Persian Gulf, 48 nautical miles east of Qatar. An Iranian coastal battery just launched a Qader anti-ship missile at USS Tempest. The Qader carries a 300-kilogram warhead. USS Tempest displaces 331 tons. A 300-kilogram warhead detonating inside a 331-ton ship does not leave a ship. The crew had 63 seconds. Welcome to Navy Beacon, where we break down the operations that define sea power. Before we talk about those 63 seconds, we need to talk about the Cyclone-class patrol coastal ship, because understanding what USS Tempest was, and what she was not, is essential to understanding how close this came to being a catastrophe. The Cyclone class was designed in the late 1980s and commissioned throughout the early 1990s. 14 ships were built. They are 170 feet long. They displace 331 tons. They are powered by 4 diesel engines producing a combined 3,350 horsepower, giving them a maximum speed of 35 knots in calm water. For armament, the Cyclone class carries one 25mm Mark 38 chain gun, 450 caliber M2 heavy machine guns, and a mixed load of smaller weapons. There is no vertical launch system, no standard missiles, no ESSM, no phalanx close-in weapon system. The Cyclone's electronic warfare suite is minimal, an AN/SLQ 32 light variant that can detect radar emissions and classify threats, and a chaff launching system with a limited number of reload salvos. That is the entire defensive package of a Cyclone-class patrol ship. The chaff system works by ejecting clouds of metallic foil strips that create false radar returns, potentially pulling an incoming missile's radar seeker away from the ship. Chaff has been a standard naval countermeasure for 70 years. It is effective against radar homing missiles in certain conditions. It is not effective against missiles that use infrared imaging in their terminal guidance phase. The Qader anti-ship missile uses both. In its cruise phase, the Qader uses a radar altimeter and inertial navigation to fly its programmed approach path. In its mid-course terminal phase, it activates an active radar seeker. In the final approach, inside approximately 15 kilometers, it switches on an infrared imaging channel that acquires the target by its heat signature and guides independently of the radar channel. Chaff is invisible to infrared. USS Tempest's crew did not know this distinction at 2:09 a.m. They were about to learn it. The Iranian coastal battery that fired the Qader was not a permanent installation on a hilltop that had been in the same place for years. It was a mobile unit, a Qader launcher mounted on a commercial truck chassis, capable of driving to a pre-surveyed firing position, setting up in under 4 minutes, firing, and dispersing before a response could arrive. The unit had driven to its firing position the previous evening, timing its arrival at the position to occur during a window that avoided U.S. satellite overflight. The pre-surveyed position was a small rise on the Qatari-facing Iranian coast, selected specifically because it offered a clear line of sight to the patrol route USS Tempest had been operating since the previous Tuesday. USS Tempest had been on the same patrol route for 22 consecutive days. 22 days. The same waypoints, the same headings, the same approximate timing each night. The patrol route had been established for good operational reasons. Predictability made coordination with Qatari Coast Guard assets easier, reduced the risk of navigational incidents, and simplified the deconfliction of surface traffic in a busy maritime corridor. Those same operational benefits had created a targeting solution for the Iranian battery. The battery commander did not need a fire control radar active for an extended period to develop a targeting solution. He had a GPS coordinate set, derived from pattern of life observation. USS Tempest would be at a known geographic position at approximately 2:09 a.m. based on 22 days of consistent movement data. The firing solution required only a brief radar activation to confirm the ship's position before launch. The fire control radar activated at 2:09:04 a.m. It was active for 94 seconds. The Qader launched at 2:09:11 a.m., 7 seconds after the radar activated. USS Tempest's AN/SLQ-32 detected the fire control radar at 2:09:11 a.m. simultaneously with the launch. The automated warning system triggered an alarm on the bridge and in the ship's central station. Red lights, alarm tones, a synthesized voice reading the classification, anti-ship missile guidance radar, bearing 021. Signal strength, strong. The officer of the deck, Ensign Kevin Walsh, on his second Gulf patrol, 24 years old, had never heard that alarm outside of a training environment. He had run the drill. He knew the procedure. He stood at the bridge console for 2 seconds, processing the fact that the drill was real. 2 seconds. His first 2 seconds. His last 2 seconds before his training took over completely. He hit the general quarters alarm. He picked up the bridge-to-nav-sent radio handset. He called the commanding officer on the internal circuit. All 3 actions in under 4 seconds. Lieutenant Commander Elena Park had been asleep for 2 hours when her cabin phone sounded. She was on the bridge in 41 seconds. The missile had been in the air for 41 seconds. 22 seconds remained. She absorbed the picture instantly. The SLQ-32 display showing the bearing, the fire control radar classification, the chaff system already armed by the automatic response protocol. All ahead flank, hard left rudder, deploy all chaff. The order came out in 4 words and 2 seconds. The helmsman had the turn-in before she finished. The engineering officer of the watch slammed the throttle levers to maximum. The chaff launchers fired. The ship heeled hard into the turn, the 4 diesel engines screaming up to full power, the chaff rockets firing off in 4 directions simultaneously. Clouds of radar-reflective foil blooming in the air astern and to port as USS Tempest began clawing her way to 35 knots. 15 seconds to impact. The Qader had been flying for approximately 48 seconds when its active radar seeker transitioned to terminal guidance mode at 2:09:59 a.m. The radar seeker acquired USS Tempest immediately. The ship was a clear radar return in the open Gulf. No obstructions, no nearby land masking. The seeker locked and the missile accelerated for its final approach. The chaff clouds deployed by USS Tempest were now between the missile and the ship. The radar seeker saw the chaff, a large, bright, radar-return-rich cloud directly in the missile's path. The seeker was attracted to the strongest return. At 2:10:04 a.m., the Qader's radar seeker transitioned away from the ship and toward the chaff cloud. The chaff had worked against the radar channel. At 2:10:06 a.m., at approximately 8 kilometers from USS Tempest, the Qader's infrared imaging channel activated. The IR seeker looked through the chaff cloud, which was, to infrared, simply a collection of metallic strips at ambient temperature. It saw nothing useful in the chaff. It looked beyond. It found USS Tempest. The ship's 4 diesel engines were running at maximum power. At maximum power, a diesel engine generates significant exhaust heat. 4 of them, on a 331-ton hull at 35 knots, generate a thermal signature that stands out clearly against the cold Gulf water surface in the early morning hours. The IR seeker acquired the ship. The missile corrected its course. The chaff was behind it. 11 seconds to impact. USS Tempest had covered 680 meters from her position at the time the missile locked her on radar. She was now on a heading 47 degrees different from the heading the missile's seeker had originally calculated as its attack bearing. The Qader's guidance system updated its aim point continuously. Every 0.4 seconds, the seeker measured the target's position and recalculated the intercept geometry. Each update incorporated the ship's current position and projected its future position forward to calculate where the missile should aim to achieve impact. USS Tempest was turning at 35 knots. Her angular rate of change relative to the incoming missile was approximately 2.1 degrees per second. The Qader's guidance update cycle of 0.4 seconds meant the aim point correction lagged the ship's actual position by a small but accumulating margin with each cycle. Over the last 11 seconds of flight, that accumulated lag built to 11 meters. The missile's calculated impact point, the place the seeker's last update had aimed the Qader, was 11 meters from the ship's actual stern position at the moment of impact. The Qader struck the water 11 meters off USS Tempest's port stern quarter. At the angle the missile was flying, a shallow, sea-skimming approach that had descended to approximately 2 meters above the Gulf surface in the final phase. The warhead entered the water rather than detonating on the surface. A 300-kilogram warhead detonating 2 meters underwater, 11 meters from a ship, produces a different damage pattern than a direct hull strike. Instead of a shaped charge penetrating the hull at a single point, the underwater detonation creates a pressure pulse that propagates spherically through the water at the speed of sound. The pulse reaches the ship's hull simultaneously across a 12-meter section of the stern. The entire aft quarter of the hull experiencing the pressure spike at essentially the same instant. The pulse hit USS Tempest's hull at 2:10:18 a.m. The shock was severe enough to crack 2 hull frames in the aft engineering spaces, structural members that run perpendicular to the keel, providing the hull's lateral rigidity. When a hull frame cracks, The structural integrity of that section of hull is compromised. Not immediately catastrophic, but a ship with cracked frames that continues operating at high speed in rough seas is a ship that is working toward a worse structural failure. The port propeller shaft seal was damaged by the hull deformation. The seal is the fitting where the propeller shaft exits the hull. It is a pressure-sealed bearing that keeps Gulf water from entering the ship around the rotating shaft. When the seal deformed under the shock, it began admitting water, slowly at first, then faster. The port diesel engine, the one driving the damaged shaft, experienced an injector rack slip from the shock. The rack controls fuel delivery to the engine cylinders. When it slipped, the engine lost power output and began misfiring. The engineering watch team isolated it within 40 seconds. USS Tempest went from 35 knots on 4 engines to 15 knots on 3 engines in 60 seconds. She was taking on water at 400 liters per hour. She was alive. She was flooding slowly. She was moving. 6 sailors in the aft engineering spaces had been thrown against equipment and bulkheads by the shock. Engine man 3rd Class Paulo Vega struck his head on a valve manifold hard enough to lose consciousness. He was down for 4 minutes before the medical response team reached him and confirmed he had a pulse. He woke up on his own at 2:16 a.m. 2 other sailors had broken bones. One a fractured forearm, one cracked ribs from impact with a machinery housing. 3 others had lacerations and symptoms consistent with mild concussion. All 6 were alive. No. In Bahrain, USS Tempest's radio call had arrived at NavCent at 2:09:28 a.m., 17 seconds after the missile launched, while it was still in the air. Ensign Walsh's quick transmission had been the first element of the response chain, and it had been correct. The duty officer initiated the strike authorization request at 2:10 a.m., before the missile even hit. 2 FA-18F Super Hornets, Hammer 51 and Hammer 52, were on Alert 5 aboard USS Abraham Lincoln. Engines turning, pilots strapped in. They launched at 2:16 a.m., 7 minutes after the attack. The targeting problem was immediately complex. The battery had been active for 94 seconds. After the launch, the fire control radar had gone silent. Standard IRGC emissions control procedure, designed to prevent a harm missile lock. The launcher truck had begun moving within 90 seconds of the launch. The battery crew had driven to their firing position with a plan that accounted for the U.S. response timeline. Based on observed American strike procedures, they had calculated that they had approximately 22 minutes from launch to when a strike aircraft would arrive over their position. They had a dispersal route planned, a coastal access road leading to a built-up area where strike authorization would become legally complicated. Their planned dispersal time from firing position to built-up area was 22 minutes. At 2:19 a.m., 10 minutes after the attack, the P-8 Poseidon that had been operating north of the convoy routes was diverted to the peninsula area on an emergency vector. The P-8 arrived at 2:21 a.m., 12 minutes after the attack. 10 minutes of thermal window remaining on the launcher truck. Its FLIR camera immediately began scanning the coastal road network. At 2:22 a.m., 13 minutes after the attack, the sensor operator identified a 3-vehicle cluster on the access road at position Gulf 47. 2 vehicles showed residual engine heat signatures consistent with recently operated heavy trucks. The launcher vehicle, the support vehicle. They were moving at 32 kilometers per hour, 2 kilometers from the built-up area, 4 minutes away. Authorization had been requested at 2:10 a.m. It returned at 2:26 a.m., 16 minutes after the request. 4 minutes until the vehicles reached the built-up area. Hammer 51 was already in an attack profile over Gulf 47 when the authorization cleared. The AGM-65 Maverick missile on his starboard pylon had been tracking the lead vehicle's engine heat for 90 seconds. He fired at 2:26:30 a.m. The Maverick covered the 2 miles to the target in approximately 11 seconds. It struck the lead vehicle, the launcher truck, amidships. The warhead detonated. The explosion ignited residual propellant in the truck's launch rail mechanism. The secondary explosion destroyed the following support vehicle. The third vehicle, the crew transport, accelerated forward. Hammer 52's Maverick hit it 14 seconds after Hammer 51's shot. 3 vehicles, 3 fires. No vehicle reached the built-up area. At 2:27:22 a.m., 18 minutes and 11 seconds after the Qader launch, the Iranian battery crew's dispersal plan had failed. USS Tempest was taken under tow by a Bahraini Coast Guard vessel at 3:40 a.m. She was flooding at a manageable rate. The damage control team had reduced the ingress from 400 liters per hour to under 100, using hydraulic putty and wedge seals on the shaft seal fitting. The flooding was controlled. The ship was stable. She arrived at Doha Naval Facility at 9:55 a.m. Engineman 3rd Class Vega was medevaxed by helicopter to Bahrain at 4 a.m. for neurological evaluation. The evaluation showed no permanent injury. He returned to duty 3 weeks later. The 2 sailors with broken bones were treated and medevaced on the same flight. USS Tempest underwent 5 weeks of repair. Cracked hull frames required steel insert reinforcement. Port shaft seal replacement required dry dock facilities. The engineering spaces were surveyed, repaired, and recertified. She returned to Gulf Patrol 6 weeks after the engagement. The after-action review took 11 days and produced 4 primary findings. Finding 1, the 22-day patrol pattern. The battery's targeting solution had been built entirely from pattern-of-life observation. USS Tempest had operated the same route for 22 consecutive days, creating a positional prediction capability so precise that the IRGC battery commander had needed only 94 seconds of fire control radar to confirm the solution before launching. Mandatory route and timing variation, maximum 48-hour cycle, was implemented across 5th Fleet for all patrol vessels operating within Iranian coastal battery coverage ranges. It was implemented the same day the finding was drafted. Finding 2, the IR terminal seeker. The chaff had failed in its primary function against the Qader because the Qader's infrared terminal guidance channel rendered the chaff irrelevant in the last phase of flight. USS Tempest's countermeasures package had no IR decoy capability. A ship-deployable IR flare system existed. It had been developed and tested. It was not yet in the fleet. The deployment timeline was 14 months. The recommendation was to expedite the deployment to high-threat area vessels. The procurement office was contacted that week. Finding 3, the 18-minute response. The complete sequence from missile launch to battery destruction had been achieved in 18 minutes and 11 seconds. This was the shortest complete response time recorded in a 5th Fleet engagement. It required every single element of the chain to function at minimum delay. The radio call at 17 seconds, the P8 arriving at 12 minutes, the thermal signature still active at 13 minutes, the authorization at 16 minutes, the strike at 18 minutes. If any single element had been 2 minutes slower, the vehicles would have reached the built-up area. The battery crew had planned a 22-minute dispersal window based on their assessment of the American response timeline. They had been wrong by 4 minutes. The reason they were wrong by 4 minutes: the P8 standard patrol altitude would have taken it 18 minutes to reach the position, not 12. But the P8 crew had descended below a layer of Gulf haze 30 minutes earlier to improve their surface radar performance. The lower altitude put them on a geometry that reduced their transit time to the area by 6 minutes. A routine altitude adjustment, unrelated to any threat, made for sensor performance reasons. That decision cut 6 minutes off the transit time. Those 6 minutes were the margin between destroying the battery vehicles and watching them disappear into a town. The Gulf does not announce when it matters. Stay vigilant, stay informed. This is Navy Beacon, and we'll see you in the next one.